Joined for our weekly chat by South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem once again. And Kristi, we thank you for your time. As we head into the new year, there's some things to talk about that will happen early in 2022. But first, let's take a look back at 2021. And you mentioned in your recent budget address that the state has taken on some unprecedented challenges recently. I suppose probably the COVID pandemic would be the headline grabber there, but talk a little bit about some of the good and bad that the state has faced over this past year.
Yeah, well, I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas, and I think it is a good time at the end of the year here to look back at where we've been so that we can really go forward looking at the opportunities that we have in front of us. But 2020 was a year that was extremely challenging for South Dakota. 2021, I think we were all glad to see arrive, and we're hoping for very different circumstances. Unfortunately, we still dealt with the pandemic all year, and taking care of people was our number one priority, giving them the flexibility they needed to take care of their family's health, but also still keep their businesses going and show up for their jobs and pay their bills. And I think we did very, very well at that. We certainly have tragedies across the state and losses, but there was unique opportunities for us to partner together, to be creative, and to tell the story of what makes South Dakota special. So we put some strong investments into infrastructure. We also developed out some new industries in the state of South Dakota in 2021. Our economy has been the strongest in the country in this year. We sent our National Guard units to deploy to several different areas around the world and to the southern border to help secure that border in a way that the federal government just isn't. And our National Guard was recognized again for the fourth straight year as being the top National Guard unit in the country. We solved long-term problems. We invested at the state fairgrounds in a new Dakota Events Complex. We recruited some of the biggest business investments in the state's history in 2021. CJ Foods will be moving in, and also some large construction projects going on, and we see those around Watertown too, and then continue to develop, the technical education and university programs that keep our kids here and get them into those jobs as those businesses are coming. So I know that we're still every day, turning on the news and hearing things that we have to do and deal with and take care of, but also we've made some monumental progress in making sure that we're still doing things that serve the people of South Dakota, that are addressing the priorities that they have and making sure that we keep that next generation right here in our state.
Governor, I know you are a very strong supporter of our military men and women, both current and past members. And in that regard, what did it mean to you to see a new state veteran cemetery open in Sioux Falls?
Well, that's pretty fantastic. I'd encourage anybody who hasn't been there to go visit. There's already many families who have memorialized their family members there at that cemetery. It's just to the northeast of the city, and our veterans groups have all partnered together to make this project a reality. Back when I served in the legislature, we talked about this while I was serving in Congress. I know it was debated in the legislature, and just to be there when they cut the ribbon on it, when they first started construction, and now to seeing it be utilized and allow people to keep their family members' memories going so close to home is really, really special for us. So there's continued work being done out there, but people should know that in our region, they have an opportunity to honor the veterans and their families and their family members really close to home, which we just weren't able to do before in South Dakota.
Well, Governor, let's talk about a bill that you drafted recently that would block teaching critical race theory in South Dakota schools, public universities, and technical colleges. You announced that legislation just last week. Before you tell us what that bill proposal would do, explain to a lot of people, because I don't believe a lot of people are familiar with what exactly critical race theory is.
Well, basically, critical race theory is racism. It's divisive teachings that aren't true. And, many times when people start talking about critical race theory, they get confused. In fact, I had a conversation a few weeks ago with some of our tribal leaders from down at Pine Ridge, and even had to have an in-depth discussion with them about what was critical race theory and some of their thoughts on what it was, and what my thoughts were. It was a great discussion on really understanding what it is and how it was being taught in some of our schools, and what we could do to partner together to make sure our kids just got the truth. And somebody else was saying to me the other day, I heard a scholar talking about the fact that, there is people in the country who are racist. There's also a lot of prejudice, and there's a difference between the two. Prejudging people is what we see quite often happen across the country, but what we need to do is to focus on making sure that our kids, when they show up for school, they're being taught the facts and the truth and our true history. So that's really what this bill would do that I'm proposing, is making sure that our kids are taught the American history, that all men are created equal, regardless of race, color, or any other factors, and that will be taught in the classroom, and they will not be taught false and divisive messages, and that will make sure that they don't agree on what really was the foundational belief system of this country. So, earlier this year, I was the first candidate in the country to sign the 1776 pledge, which was something that was brought forward by Ben Carson and Newt Gingrich and myself, that just said this would ensure that we believe in the 1776 pledge, that makes sure that we have the facts in our classrooms, the true history of the American story, and that our kids will not be taught to divide and to hate each other.
Governor, I'm sure it came as no surprise to you that the American Civil Liberties Union of South Dakota came out in opposition of this proposed bill. They say that it could censor U.S. history discussions, and that local school districts should be able to decide their own curriculum. So what would you say to people who might believe that this is a state government overreach in telling local school districts what they should teach or how they should teach it?
Well, it's not a surprise that they protest against this type of truth in our history that's taught in the classrooms. I would just say this to people: do you have a problem with your kids reading the Declaration of Independence in school? Do you have a problem with your kids reading, the Constitution? What this will do is just ensure that they get the chance to read that content that is the foundation of this country. It's not going to spin an opinion to them. It's not going to have a teacher stand up in front of them and tell them what to think. It's going to make sure that they're aware of it, that they are taught it, and from there that they can go forward and really know the background of this country. I don't know of any parent in the state of South Dakota that doesn't believe that their kids should understand what the Revolutionary War was and why it was fought. But the fact is that in some school districts, those items are not being taught, and our kids aren't aware of why America is special and why it's still the greatest country in the world. And in order to truly understand where we live and what a gift we have in our freedoms and liberties here in this country, we have to know where they came from and how we got here and where we are today. I'm a big believer that we have to understand our history and where we've been so we don't repeat those mistakes in the future. So, there's just groups that have an agenda. They make money off creating division and championing an agenda that just doesn't simply align with our way of life and our beliefs here in this country.
It was announced last week, Governor, that the next round of arguments in your lawsuit against the Biden administration over the ability to shoot off fireworks at Mount Rushmore will be heard at the appellate court level in St. Louis on January 12th. Give us a little background on how things came to this point and why this issue is important enough to you to sue the administration and then appeal and take it to the appellate court level. Well,
you're correct, Mike. They'll hear these oral arguments on January 12th. and that means that our lawyers will be in front of South Dakota judges in court defending our rights to hold these fireworks. They were denied by us for no factual reason. There is an Administrative Procedures Act that they needed to follow that they did not follow, and this is simply about making sure that our federal government and the White House and President Joe Biden follow the law, and in this case they did not. We wanted to celebrate our independence at Mount Rushmore with fireworks on July 3rd like we did for many, many years. They denied us that opportunity simply because I think they didn't like that we held this event when everyone else in the country was focused on something else other than remembering what was special about the United States of America. So we all know that tourism is incredibly important to our state. We're very proud of Mount Rushmore. We love this country. This celebration is the best opportunity for us to market ourselves to the rest of the world. We want people to wake up the morning of July 4th and see the fireworks over Mount Rushmore and be a chance for us to join hands and really embrace our liberties here. And so that's what I think is the paramount discussion here is they denied us our opportunity to host this event because of a political agenda and did not follow through or follow the law in making sure that they had a real legitimate reason for doing so.
Governor, your office recently released some really positive news on a number of fronts. The state's total net worth is $8.1 billion. That's up 10% from the previous fiscal year. The reserve funds are now at $307.1 million, an increase of more than $91 million. The retirement system has a funded status of more than 105%, which places it among the strongest pension plans in the country, and South Dakota has maintained its AAA bond rating for the last 5 years. I don't know if you would like to comment on one or all of those issues, but they're all good news for sure.
Yeah, they're all fantastic news because when you're doing well financially and you're making the right investments into reserves, into your pension fund, getting that foundation under your state, it's much more stable, and we're able to weather any type of recession or anything that might be coming our direction based on federal health or federal policies that are coming out of Washington, D.C. So we're doing good. We're following the priorities and the principles that the people of the state have told the government to do. It's my priority to be fiscally responsible with everybody's tax dollars that they send to the state, to keep it small, targeted, and to make sure that we're not in a situation where we're back raising taxes or taking more money out of people's pockets. I'm just a big believer that people make better decisions with their money than the government does. But the money that they do send to the state of South Dakota under my watch is going to be invested into things that make a long-term difference for them and for their children, and to provide stability in an ever-changing world.
Early next month, Governor, you'll be out in Rapid City speaking at a deployment ceremony for the National Guard's 235th Military Police Company. More than 100 soldiers from the Rapid City and Sioux Falls-based unit will be on a year-long federal deployment to Cuba in support of Joint Task Force Guantanamo. What does it mean to you, Governor, when you personally go to these deployment ceremonies and speak to these soldiers and their families about the sacrifice that they're making? And maybe secondly, a second part to that question, given the world that we live in today, do you see the National Guard's role changing at all? Because I think of the recent deployment of our own South Dakota Guard soldiers to the southern border.
Well, what I would say, Mike, is that I'm there to send the same message I send every day to our National Guard, is that I've got their six, that I've got their back, and that whatever they need, I'll follow through on the promises that I made to them, and that is to be their commander-in-chief that will give them the best training, equipment, and support that they need to do their job with excellence. So these military police soldiers will be going to Guantanamo Bay. They'll be a part of Operation Enduring Freedom, and that's a part of our anti-terrorism efforts that the federal government is taking on in partnership with these state National Guard units. So they'll be helping to secure prisoners and terrorists, and they respond to all kinds of situations and threats around the world. They've deployed to Africa, to the southern border, to the Middle East. It's amazing to me the amount of requests that we have for our National Guard units because they are the best in the country. And we get asked to, or we ask them to not only deploy and go into war zones, but then go to the southern border here in the United States and enter a different kind of a war zone there, but then respond to crises that we have here in the state, whether it's a snowstorm, a tornado, flooding, even a health situation like we asked them to do and partner with us during the pandemic. Their skill set is the best equipped for changing situations, and I'm just so proud of them and want them to know I'm going to be there, sending them off, that I thank them for answering the call and following orders, but also will be supporting their families while they're gone and do all we can to make sure that they don't have anything else on their mind that they're worried about while they're there doing their job, that we've got a partnership that unlike any other state does with their National Guard. So that will be a hard deployment for them. It's a very different kind of a deployment. And so we want to help make sure that they're prepared for that, and that we also will be supporting them through it, even recognizing it'll be a very different experience than most of their deployments they may have had in previous years.
And again, that deployment ceremony will be coming up on Wednesday, January 5th, out in Rapid City. Governor, Happy New Year to you and your family. Thanks for your time, and we will chat again next week.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Mike.